God is good all the time. And today I have another healthy, organic chocolate recipe to share with you, and I'm really excited. So we're going to get to that. So today's recipe is a coffee cream chocolate. Doesn't that just sound scrumptious? Even decadent? Okay, so this one I'm going to do all in one batch rather than doing it in layers like I typically like to do with my cream type chocolates. And I do have some more coming with a raspberry cream and an orange cream. Those will be down the road, so be watching for those. And if you haven't seen like my peppermint patty video, I'll go ahead and link that one up here, and you can also find my peanut butter chocolate video. I've got that one. Now I'm going to go over a few basics when it comes to making your chocolate to make it easy for you to figure out how to do your own recipe based off of this. Alright, so for every 1 ounce of cacao butter that you use, you're going to want 1 tablespoon of whatever sweetener, whether it be your organic powdered sugar or honey. There's also a fruit option, but I'll get to that in a minute. And then you're going to want 2 tablespoons of whatever powders, dried ingredients you're using, such as if it's just plain chocolate, then you're going to use 2 tablespoons of cacao powder for each 1 ounce of cacao butter. Now, since I'm making a combination, I'm going to mix this up so that it's a little bit different. And then to give it that creamy flavor, I do what I typically do for making a white chocolate, and I'm going to be adding some powdered milk to this, and this is that yummy organic powdered milk that I talked about before, and I'll be linking to this below. So what I need to do first is I need to melt my cacao butter, and today I'm doing 6 ounces. So that's going to mean 12 tablespoons of my powders, and then 6 tablespoons of my sweetener, whatever sweetener I use. And what you want to do is get this in a good stainless steel pan, especially with a heavy bottom. I wouldn't say this is a real heavy bottom, but I've been very happy with how this has worked. I do this right on my wood stove. You can also use a double boiler, which is most often recommended when making chocolate. I don't have one, so I just don't bother. I know there's other methods you can use to make a double boiler, but to me, this works, and I've been happy with it. So let me go put this on the wood stove, and then I'll be back in a bit. Now, while my cacao butter is melting, I'm going to show you what I do next, and that is to, and you want to melt it slowly, by the way, on a low heat. I'm going to take a silicone spatula, a small silicone spatula I find works best for spreading butter in my pie pan, and I like to use the glass pie pan more than anything. However, you can also get those silicone cups like is shown in my peppermint patty video. I actually rarely use those, but sometimes you just want something that looks a little better. When I do it like this, I call it a chocolate bark, and this is just easier. It's a quicker method, and I'm using glass. I don't have to worry about the toxins in the silicone, which I don't fear those things because I don't use it enough for me to feel that I have to worry about it. And by the way, Ellen, thanks for this. It's the perfect size and shape. And so is the other ones that came. I love them. Anyway, I find a silicone spatula works a lot better for spreading butter than using like the silicone brushes. Those are just a pain when spreading butter. What I have here is 4 tablespoons of very finely ground coffee grounds. That just sounded redundant. And then I'm going to put 4 tablespoons of my cacao powder. Again, I will link to any of this stuff below that I am able to. I'm not sure if I can find the coffee beans on there. I get my coffee beans from Costco. They're organic. And then I'm going to go ahead and add at least 2 tablespoons of, we'll make 2 heaping tablespoons of my organic powdered milk. And this is whole milk. You really want to go with whole milk. It's going to be the tastiest. It's just best. And then, remember, it's 6 ounces of the cacao butter, so I'm using 6 tablespoons of sugar. I know that sounds like a lot, This is powdered sugar though, so it's, you know, it's a little fluffier, it's not as heavy. And this is the homemade powdered sugar, and if you want to find out how to make your own, you can find a video to that right up here. Very easy. And it's cheaper than trying to find organic powdered sugar. Okay, so I'm going to mix these together so they're real smooth, blended very well. Now, you can use honey, as I mentioned. However, the problem I find with honey, especially when I'm putting it on the bottom layer, or the only layer, like this is just going to be a one layer chocolate this time, is that it is going to be most likely to separate. You got to realize that your homemade chocolates are not filled with soy lecithin and all this other garbage that helps stabilize it and keep everything together. That's why they put all that stuff in there. And again, which reminds me, I wanted to say, that is why you want to make your own chocolate, because even in the healthiest brands that you can find, there's usually still, just like with the nut milks, garbage added to it that they do to make it more pleasant, to make it thicker, to make it more stable, whatever. Which when you're making the stuff at home, you don't need all that stuff. A lot of times it's for the sake of making the thing shelf stable, because when homemade chocolate is not going to last set out, it's going to melt. You have to keep it in your refrigerator. But I would rather do that than buy the store-bought stuff, and plus this is cheaper and I know exactly what is going in it. Now let me go over another option for you of a choice of sweetener, and this is what I usually do when I'm just making a batch of chocolate. I usually only do 3 things. I use raisins, organic cacao, and organic cacao powder if I'm just wanting chocolate with nothing extra, and that is it. The raisins then become my sweetener. So if you like raisins, I know a lot of people don't like raisins, so that's why I'm doing it this other way, to show you, like for a coffee cream, maybe raisins might sound a little funny. I wanted to do it with the raisins, but I wanted to show you the recipe the other way with the powdered sugar, so you can have that option too. But for a completely sugar-free, other than fruit option, use raisins. Raisins are your sweetest dehydrated fruit that you're going to be able to come across. And what I recommend is that you put your raisins in the pan. You just cover the whole bottom of the pan with raisins. Now, if you're only going to do maybe 4 ounces, spread them out a little bit more than that. But since this recipe right here, I'm doing 6 ounces, I would put it all the way across and make sure it's even all the way across and totally full on the bottom of the pan. Again, that's also going to depend on how much sweetness you really want. You may want less raisins, but at any rate, you will find that the raisins will give it plenty of sweetness without having to add honey or powdered sugar. And again, the powdered sugar is going to be better than adding a straight sugar. You can also make powdered sugar using coconut sugar too, if you would want something a little more healthy than the organic cane sugar, which is what I typically use for this. And I have made powdered sugar out of my coconut sugar, and it works really well. So it just kind of depends on the flavor you want and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, so there's your option with the fruit. And I do have more videos on using dehydrated and freeze-dried fruits for making chocolates. And I can't link to all the videos up here because there'll be too many, but I'll link to one of them right here, because I know I got a lot of stuff kind of going on up here and I don't want to get too much, and whatever I can't fit up here I'll put in the end cards. So anyway, I'll be back with the cacao butter and then show you what I do next. Now that my cacao butter is all melted, you can see what it looks like in there, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next step. However, I wanted to say that if you're going to use honey, I would say right at the end when it's almost all melted, go ahead and add your honey in here so it will blend really well in with the cacao butter before you go to add your other ingredients. First thing I'm going to do is add, and this is optional, is add just a little bit, about a teaspoon or so, of my homemade vanilla extract, and mix that in. And then I'm going to pour this, since I'm doing it this way with the dry ingredients in the bowl, I'm going to pour this in to my dry ingredients. Mix it really well. Now you don't want to delay, because you don't want your cacao butter cooling off and setting up on you before you get it all blended and then into your pan. All right, so now I'm just going to go ahead and scoop all this in here. It's nice and blended just beautifully. And what you'll want to do is then very quickly, as soon as you get it in your pan, is put it in your refrigerator or your fridge to set up. The faster it sets, the better, in the fact that it'll keep it from separating too much. Okay, so I'm going to put this in my freezer and I'll be right back. Now, one thing that you will find is if you put it in your freezer, the chocolate is going to crack before it is all done. However, because we're making a chocolate bark with this, it's perfect. I would prefer it to crack because it's going to make it easier for getting it out of the pan later. So I will be back when that's all set up and ready to take out of the pan. All right, my chocolate is all set up. I just got it out of the freezer and it did get a little crack in it. Not as big as I hoped to make it easier on me, but that's okay. I'll show you how I cut this up. So I like to use this particular spatula right here, and because it's a good heavy spatula and it's nice and flat. And I got this from Amazon, like I get a lot of kinds of things. And so I'll link to it below if you're interested. And then you can just lift it out and break it into little pieces like that. Break it smaller. And that's the easiest way to do it. Much easier than using the little silicone cups, though it really doesn't look quite as nice. So I'm storing this in a glass lock container or Snapware or whatever the name of this is. And I will link to these below. I love these things. Anyway, because this doesn't have all those stabilizers in it, again, you want to keep this stored in the refrigerator and then just take a piece or two at a time as you need it. So, yeah, and there you go. That's how I make my coffee cream chocolate. So I hope you enjoyed this video and that you learned something new. Thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.